need people who have billions of dollars. And I think, well, we might need Elon Musk. Like, that's something we could all think about. But in any case, here's a reason we need some people to be extremely rich. I mean, when cell phones first came out, I think they were like $150,000 a piece when they were hooked directly to a satellite network. And, they were big and bulky, and only the most wealthy could clearly afford them and use them productively, given their great expense. But it was like 5 years later, everybody had one. And now they're not just cell phones. There's these stunning technological miracles that are, well, they're just beyond comprehension what those things can do. But it isn't obvious to me at all that everyone could have ever got one if only a few people, if we weren't willing to put up with the fact that only a few hyper wealthy people could have them to begin with. And maybe we can't get really innovative technological, we can't really make innovative technological progress at the commodity level unless we have pools of people at every level of wealth, so that we can produce a market for something new among the hyper rich before we can produce enough of it so that everybody can have it. And so
right.
Would that mean that inequality, does that imply that economic inequality is actually a prerequisite for the mass production of highly complex technological gadgetry, let's say, for everyone?
Look, these new innovations come out and you have typically these significant fixed costs up front to make the first use.
Yeah.
And who pays for that? The rich pay for that. And then the marginal cost, the cost to the next one, that falls dramatically. Think about software. Think about some of these apps that cost you $1 million to create the app, but the cost for the next copy is a few cents. Well, what should the price be?
The first one costs, $100 million, and the millionth one costs 15 cents. But you have to ratchet your way down that price ladder.
Yeah, who's going to do that for you? It's the rich that are willing to put up those costs, pay those prices up front.
Well, and then, you think too, and then if it wasn't, you could say, well, maybe government pools of capital could manage that, but it's not the case because, like, government isn't going to buy enough massive flat screen TVs when they first become available, because the government doesn't consume like an individual, whereas a rich person in some sense does, right? Because they'll go after consumer products. And so I don't think we can replace the benevolent utility of some people with massive pools of capital with any communal replacement.
See, I think, the difference between rich and poor is 5 years.
Right. Yes.
Yes, I get it today. Well, everybody's going to get this in 5 years.
Yeah, and maybe in 10 years, it'll be 2 years.
I remember very distinctly a conversation I had with a very close friend of mine about 20 years ago. We were driving, and he said, how long before access to internet becomes a basic human right? And of course, today in the United States, government pays people who cannot afford access to broadband internet out of the government pocket. It has basically become a basic human right as far as Americans are concerned. Let me say one thing about, by the way, by that I don't mean that I buy into these things as human rights. What I'm saying is that people perceive it as a human right. But I think that the importance of the discussion between equality and inequality is actually much deeper than that. Equality, I'll be very frank, equality is stasis. It's another word for stasis. Inequality is, in my view, the midwife of progress.
Well, it's certainly the midwife of trade, because if we're completely equal, we have nothing to trade.
Well, yes, but in so many different ways, inequality is the midwife of human progress. By that I mean primarily material, but maybe some other as well. Let's say that you have a society which is completely static. I'm just going to come up with an example of everybody living in a cave. And then somebody decides, well, I have this great idea of actually building a hut on a hill with a better view and so forth. There is an inequality of housing there going on for a little while, whilst other people realize that they can improve how they live their lives. In production, in even in personal behavior. If you have a society which is static and doesn't change, and somebody realizes that, hey, maybe this form of behavior, like learning, reading books, can lead to a better life, that in itself is a way of inequality. When a company decides that instead of relying on human labor creating pins, we are going to buy a machine, that is going to create an inequality of production process, but that is in itself going to move the society forward. So
so you're basically pointing out that as a positive change begins to manifest itself in a society, it first manifests itself as a marked inequality. It has to, because it can't appear everywhere at once.
Yes, because equality is stasis. It means that everything is the same, and inequality is the disruptor. It tells people that things can be done differently. Now, some people make stupid choices and they suffer the consequences, but if those choices are good, you can become fabulously rich or important in your community because you have figured out a better way of living.